Got it. Okay, so we're live, and thanks to everybody for joining us. Anybody who's joining us in our group, first and foremost, and thanks for joining us today. And anybody who's watching out on social media, thank you for joining us today.
I'm not hearing anything now. The volume went out.
Okay, that's not
There you
good.
go. You're back. You're back.
Am I back?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll start from the top. Thanks for joining us, everybody. And we're really excited today. We really got a special guest. And we're, to those who are joining us through live stream, thank you for joining us. Really special. It's an honor for me today to be kind of interviewing our guest. That would be much of an interview. I mean, he's he's a well-versed speaker, so I don't know how much of an interview is it to be. He'll be talking away. So Eric Reynolds, Officer Eric Reynolds, I had the pleasure of meeting him at Boca in 2023 was the first time I met Eric. And it's been a real pleasure. Eric is part of the low carb community. He's one of the pillars of the low carb community. Something is like when Eric's not at a low carb USA event, it's just not right. So he's affectionately known as the doorman for those who have attended low carb USA events, affectionately known as the doorman of the event. And it's a real privilege to know him and have him to know Eric and to have spent time with him at conferences and on other occasions. So thank you, Eric, for joining us. It's a real pleasure to having you here today. Eric has a compelling story, just amazing story, and you guys will hear a lot of that. Just a fun fact as well for those of you who are joining us. Kind of a fun fact before we start getting into Eric's journey. As you know, Eric is from law enforcement, and for those of you who he comes from a family of law enforcement, so his mom was also from the police force, and Detective June Hawkins, if that rings a bell to any of you. Recently, there was a mini series, a series made on Netflix called Griselda, and Officer June Hawkins, who was the officer who actually brought down Griselda, the drug lords, was actually a true life story, and just happens to be Eric's mom in real life. So for those of you who haven't checked out that, it's called Griselda on Netflix. Check it out. It's an awesome story. Okay. And I'm gonna go ahead now, and I'm gonna read Eric's bio for you guys to get an idea, an introduction. I'm gonna give him an introduction. So welcome, Eric. And Eric Reynolds is a retired police officer and a health advocate. He has navigated a significant personal journey since the time he has been in law enforcement. After serving from 2001 to 2019, during which he was involved in a critical shooting incident, Eric faced numerous health challenges, including post-traumatic stress disorder, heart disease, obesity. His journey to wellness began in earnest with a ketogenic diet, which led him to lose significant weight and improve his metabolic health and mental state. In 2018, Eric was introduced to the ketogenic diet, which catalyzed the weight loss of 80 pounds. He sparked his advocacy through KetoFiveO sports nutrition company, aiming to support his responders with their metabolic health. His transition to a carnivore diet further improved his health, leading to additional weight loss and sustained state of well-being. Despite these improvements, this is like an incredible piece, and I'm sure Eric will get into detail about this, and it's incredible. Eric came up with a coronary CAC score in 2019 of 1,545, raising concerns about his cardiovascular health. By January 2024 of this year, his score has increased to 4,148, prompting further investigations. These revealed high levels of heavy metals, including mercury and arsenic, and Lyme disease diagnosis, which have shaped his current focus on detox treatments and holistic practices. Today, as co-founder of Cops and Campers, Eric is dedicated to helping other first responders overcome their physical and mental health challenges. His life's work now centers on nutrition, wellness, education, and creating supportive communities through his nonprofit efforts. He is definitely a very big part of our low carb community. Again, it's an honor to have him here, and welcome, Eric, and please share your story.
Wow, thanks for having me, guys. First of all, here's my mom, the real hero. No, she's not here. That would have been funny, but because she raised me. I mean, that's where the cop life started in me. She was a single mom back in the 70s, and kind of sports and coaches became my surrogate dads, right? So did the American diet became my diet, and unfortunately, that led me down metabolic disease. By the time I was, in my 40s, probably a good 50 pounds overweight, and not understanding what to do really, even as a cop that worked out a lot and played basketball, and I couldn't figure it out. Didn't know a lot about nutrition or anything like that. So yeah, the ketogenic way of life was, man, I saw a guy playing basketball, lost 50 pounds, and I asked him, what'd he do? And he's like, I did ketogenics. I was like, what is that? Right? I didn't know they were sucking fat out of his body or what, right? So I don't know. I looked it up, started reading about it. It was almost like a last ditch, like a Hail Mary attempt, because I'd pretty much tried the standard ways of losing weight that everyone's tried, right? So, and it happened quick, man. The minute I started watching my carbs and like adjusting my meal times, it was like 2 pounds every 2 weeks. A couple of months, it was like 15, 20 pounds. And then 6 months later, 50 pounds, and then I started researching stuff like, why is this happening? Why doesn't nobody else know about this stuff, right? I started helping cops in my department and getting a nickname KetoFiveO, because go to evidence, Eric will help you lose weight. And first thing I say is drop the Dr. Pepper, get that crap out of here, and it started spreading. And then I started finding the corruptness that goes on with the food industry and our politicians and everything that's behind the scenes, pretty much everything that Nina Teicholz has written about, that just opened my eyes. And then, once you get in that room, you start looking around, start reading more and more information. Then I took it real personal that they're doing this across the board to us, right? Profiting from our sickness. And I think someone should go to jail and prison. I mean, I'm not letting this go. I take it in, like I said, real personal, but my kids now are kind of they're the future of it with me too. They're understanding how to eat right, what not to eat, and little different things like that, and how to take care of themselves. So yeah, being that heavy, of course it goes way back to my childhood and other issues, but it wasn't fun being overweight like that and having to deal with that on a day-to-day basis, and being a cop for almost 20 years and that stress on top of the trauma I've already had in my life, didn't help all the other issues I had going on. Eating for comfort, drinking for comfort, drinking to calm myself down from a busy day, even though it may not have been the most exciting day for a cop day, but to us, it's still a day, that we have to deal with. So yeah, sought therapy, through PTSD. I had to fight through workers' comp to get the therapy I needed. And that's when I also started realizing, the brain, stomach biome connection, and how much of that is really, I mean, it's huge. I mean, obviously we just had Chris Palmer talk at this last event we're at, and there's such a direct correlation with mental disease and your diet, and it's just, I know it's just the beginning of it, but I know I've gone through it, and what that did, getting into, eating clean food, whether it's carnivore or keto, even paleo, all that other stuff, just get off the processed garbage, and it does such great things, and that's why we're part of this movement, right? American Diabetes Society and everything that Dr. Tro's doing. And then we got Dr. Baker out there out west doing stuff. I mean, it's coming, we just need these guys in some powerful positions like Congress, whether it's Dr. Berg or something. That's where I'm looking at. I'm so far already going, and we're going to go up this hill and take it,
Yeah, it's I know there's no lack of passion on your side, and I know we've kind of spoken, we've had the opportunity to speak of where you can envision this you know, our community and where it can go and where we can get things and try to hopefully help so much more of the world, right? So I know you have a deep passion for that. Um, talk to us a little bit about, actually talk to us a lot about probably what's going to be. I think you posted it today. Was it today or yesterday? With it actually like on social media, your spread in particular of your coronary, your calcium score, and maybe you can talk
Yeah.
to us a little bit about that because I mean people, even as I was reading it, may have been freaking out a little bit with those numbers. So kind of like maybe give a little bit of an explanation of what what's going on with that. It's
Yeah.
it's remarkable.
Well, in 2019, after about, I think it was about 6 months of keto, it overlapped into 2019. I'm getting all my blood panels done before I retire from police work. I already planned to retire on my 50th birthday in 2019. So April comes, let's get all the blood work done. And comes back, I got really high LDL, and I knew a little bit about LDL then. I hadn't read or watched Dr. Diamond's post or, presentation about it. So I kept, it was whatever. What's LDL? Like, how much does it really mean when your other numbers are good? Like your A1C and your weight. I was on the right path, and my doctor was very concerned. So he goes, "Hey, go for this calcium score. Once you get that done, if it comes back really low, you're good to go." So I'm like, "Oh, awesome. Clean bill of health when I retire. Kiss you guys goodbye." Right. So he calls me a couple of days later after the exam, and he's like, "Eric, he's my primary, doctor. He's not like a cardiologist or anything." And he's like, "Your score came back over 1,500." He's like, "My God, we got to send you to the cardiologist," and he's like, "We may be talking stents, and no doubt you should be on statins." And I was like, "Holy cow, man." It kind of scared me because, you think you know a lot because you're kind of tap dancing in this new world of information. You're teaching people about it, but, you haven't lived it really that long at this point. So I was like, "What?" So I started looking up information, and the first thing I remember seeing was Dr. Ken Berry's talk about high LDL, and he had Dr. David Diamond's post in there about, you know, statins and stuff like that. So I really dove into that, went to the cardiologist with some information on statins and how they cause kidney damage and all this other issue, because I'm just trying to calm my inflammation down and just, I don't want any stents or anything like that. So he really wanted me to go get the stents and all that. He wanted to put me in, and I didn't know how far that was going to go. I know it's going to probably end up leading to open heart surgery. I know this path. I've already seen it, with friends of mine and stuff like that. So I walked away. I just said, "Screw you. I want to keep doing the keto carnivore life, keep losing weight, go travel the country." Of course, COVID hit. The world was going bonkers, the following year. We're traveling around in an RV, homeschooling our kids, all over the parts of Tennessee, North Carolina. I kind of forgot about it because I was feeling fantastic. So this last year in Boca, I'm sitting there talking to Dr. Bavadia, and then I'm talking with Ben Azadi. Right? How cool is that? Done both their podcasts. I'm just hanging out with them. I'm like, "Ooh, I'm like I'm at the cool table." And we started talking about, I think it was somebody there had reduced their CAC score a little bit. It was one of those like 187 to 176 or something, right? And I'm like, "Is it even the same machine?" I had all these questions. And then they're like, "When's the last time you had yours done?" And I was like, 2019. And I told them 1,500. And they were like, "Have you been rescanned?" I go, "Nah, it's been 5 years. I'm pretty much been carnivore." I go, I haven't been drinking the last 6 months. And this is January 2024. So it's right back at that event. They're like, "We got to get you to rescan. Let's see what it, shows." So I'm thinking 1,600, 1,700, and it came back 4,145. And I had to do a double take. I'm like, were they adding the previous year, 2019, with this new number or something? You're kind of just sitting there looking at the paperwork. And no, it was 4,100. And I had to schedule a call with him, with Dr. Avadia that night, because he ended up becoming my doctor. So, I'm going to trust the heart surgeon that doesn't want to be cutting into people, right? So I said, "He's my doc, he's my guy." So we signed up with him, and we're doing all the protocols, right? And that's when Dave Feldman stuff started coming out about lean mass hyper responders and them having really high LDLs and cholesterol levels, but everything else is awesome. And we see what Nick's bouncing around doing. So but they all got 0 scores. I'm like, man, I'm like one of them, but that's why I joked about the conference. I'm like a lean mass hyper first responder because of all the stress that I think we've done to our bodies in that career. I mean, I don't think the average people know the adrenaline dumps that go on in a cop's heart on a daily basis. Even just some that spooks you when you're just driving your car. You're like, oh, okay. And now you're still going to the call, and then you got to go, you got to calm everyone down or arrest somebody. And then it just never stops, right? So, yeah, when that score came back, and then, having to do different types of blood work, just to see what was going on. And that's when some of the heavy metals and mycotoxins came up with the Lyme disease diagnosis that I never knew I had. Now, I suffered when I was heavy with inflammation and knee pain and all kinds of aches and stuff. And who knows if that wasn't the Lyme running wild through me back then, or maybe it's something that happened recently. I don't know. So the metals tested high in mercury, and you said arsenic, and it was also aluminum. So that could be deodorant, that could be, who knows? I mean, I was a military kid. They injected us with everything. My dad was in the service. I got it too, right? And this is, their Vietnam days when, just stick them with it. Let's see what happens. So I don't know where my toxins came from. Variety of places, my diet, the job itself. I was in an evidence room for 8 years that they ended up closing the police department down and rebuilding it because of mold issues. So, I mean, there's so many environmental things that happen. So mercury fillings were taken out, mercury free in my mouth. I mean, that's something you really need to look into, because I started having some side effects from having the mercury taken out. It was just because my body was detoxing. My lymph nodes were draining, like everything was just some wild stuff going on. And I worked also with a homeopathic doctor on that level to get some of the tinctures and just different remedies, maybe designed for me, as I was doing the stuff that Dr. Ovadia was recommending with some of the heart medications, and not any real medication, but it's always stuff like, to try to boost your, I don't know, I was going to say testosterone, but since I've been carnivore, my testosterone is over 800. It was 300 in 2019. So, I mean, I don't know if people are taking extra stuff, but you should definitely try to do the carnivore for a little bit, because it's fantastic what it did with my testosterone. But anyways, yeah, it's another look besides your diet. Here I am rolling around thinking I'm fantastic. I can do handstands. I can play tag with my kids. This is great. And meanwhile, I still got all this calcified damage that I had, and the question is it soft plaque? Well, right now it doesn't look like it's soft plaque based on the testing I've done. So I have to maintain a low inflammation diet. I can't gain weight and start inflaming my body, because who knows what that'll do. I think of it as it's a piece of, like a work of art now, I kind of have to protect. I just can't be too crazy with my diet and stress. That's another one. I think that's really what did the damage, because there's guys that eaten the same kind of food, played sports like me, but I think that job, and I think back playing high school football, every time I ran out there on that football field, what was happening? Going into battle, right? The Coliseum, and then what did I do after college? I caught shoplifters for Macy's, right? Catching those guys running all, knocking mannequins over and stuff. And next thing you know, hey, let's go join the police force too. Let's just add to it. So I wouldn't doubt if they did a scan of like a lot of cops, firemen, dispatchers, anybody that has a high stress job and they lost weight, I guarantee they're probably going to have a high CAC score.
Yeah, it's there's no question the level of stress. I mean, particularly, stress today is had by everybody, let alone without being, on the line of duty. People are stressed out every single day. And I could just imagine how many times fold the pressure is. I know you've told me some of your, particularly the main story of, when you were involved in that, in the shooting. And I remember vividly, as you're saying the story, it's like you could see clearly the stress is still, the memories and what have you. And but it's like, I'm sure, it's something that is not easy to deal with. That's why I'd like you to talk a little bit in context to, because nobody, very few people and very few jobs are going to have a higher stress level than what you've experienced, and what many police officers still continue to experience, and in serving. what are the main, like, how long did it take for you to start realizing the calm and difference that it's making, this diet, this, whether it was keto and then progressing from keto to carnivore? Where would you rate? Was there a big jump in kind of, should I call it, the more, the calmness and less anxiety and the clarity? Talk to us a little bit about that if you don't mind.
Yeah, I'll speed through the shooting a little bit. When I got in the shooting and got shot, and then we shot and killed the guy shooting us. That then sent me in this little spiral of gaining weight, and being a lot more stressed, and my hypervigilance was off the chart. So I ended up taking an evidence job because I was still trying to manage myself, and with alcohol and bad eating and not knowing how to communicate right. Because in our profession, you don't go run down the hallway saying you're having an issue. So you kind of keep it in, and maybe you trust one guy or something like that. So, by the time I was in, I got to do evidence, which was more of a desk job, Monday to Friday. It kind of eased the stress of having to go call to call where I thought I was going to be in a shooting every time. To, all right, the only shooting's probably going to happen in the PD when our bosses start fighting or something like that. So it ended up being very therapeutic because while I'm in evidence, I'm reading up on stuff, right? And one of the things I got was one of those desks that goes up and down. So at the same time, as I was changing my diet, I was also standing while I worked rather than like I'm doing now, rather than sitting down, which always made me tired and slowed my metabolism down or whatever. My body would just shut down. And I started seeing my steps going up because sometimes I'm just walking in circles at my desk, but there's also what was going on is my energy levels are going up. I'm flying off of ketones, and I have so much stored fat on my body that I just kept flying. And I was more organized, like little things, I was a little bit like I wasn't as foggy as I used to be. I remember, because I'm still doing the same job that I was doing before, whether it's taking evidence in, checking it out for court or whatever. I was just a lot more organized and not as many mistakes. Not that I was making a ton of mistakes, but I just noticed like I was working better. So I was like, wow, that's really, that's a good thing to have. And I was more, obviously you start seeing success, you start wanting to tell people about it. You always know when someone's on keto, right? And you can't wait to tell somebody, hey, you got to check this out. I lost all this weight. So I noticed the big difference was when I went more ketovore, because I only threw in the vegetables out of guilt. I didn't know I could just eat the meat, or I would have started that first, but I got away from the plants. And then I pretty much, Dr. Saladino's book I read, I was all on it. I'm going to be like our natives back in the day and just eat organs and do all this stuff. And I retired. So at the same time, I lose the stress of 20 years, right? And I'm trying a new way of eating. And that's when I got down from like about 205 to 175. And whew, what a difference, man. My body's, it just, I never realized how much weight I was carrying around for no reason, and I was able to do that because I at least stayed active. I always worked out, was always playing hoops. I was just, I always called it my heavy suit. And once I took that off, hey, this is the body I was working on the whole time, right? So, I don't know what else you want to ask me about, but we've all seen the difference in the mental state of mind you go through. And then, you almost become like a deacon for it. You're just preaching it.
Yeah, for sure. I can ask you that. Do you find that now that you're so many years into this lifestyle, and when no matter what, it may not be police stress that you're going through now, but we all have different kinds of stress in our lives, no matter what it may be, right? Even though I know like you're always in that beautiful setting that you're in right now, so you're less likely to be stressed out, but stress for sure still exists at certain times. So do you just find that on the overall, let's say in the past that you would have gone anxious or anxiety about something, that you take things more, easier to not get as stressed? Do you find the difference in that way?
Yeah, it's going to affect your mood. And if you're level, you're not hangry and all these other issues going on, you're going to be a better person, and I realized, eating this way, I was just a nicer person. I was, here I am working out with my kids, running around with them, being a little bit more of a family man. Something I was never taught growing up. It's not how I grew up in my family. It's divorce, divorce, divorce. Mom come home solving homicides, and all right, let's go back to playing football. That was kind of how my childhood went. And yeah, of course, I'm like everyone else. I wish I knew this when I was 14 or 15 years old, but I'm happy to have found it this late in life. And, my kids, I mean, I can't believe it. I'm seeing they're walking example of what good diet does with kids, right? How creativity or how creative they are. And that's also the homeschooling we do. I mean, I know it's a combination, but the way there's no behavior. I mean, they're just solid, good kids, and we're just blessed that they're not a pain. They've never had a chance to be a pain in the butt with their diet because we never got off the rails with it because we're too busy worried about my diet, right? So everyone just fell in line. Let's save dad. Meanwhile, everyone else eats right. So
Awesome. Hey guys, before I ask Eric a couple of more questions, please feel free, those in the group, if you have any questions for Eric, please put it in the chat so that we can ask Eric. Please feel free to ask him anything that you want him to address, your curiosity, to ask him any questions. Actually, speaking of kids, and you bring up your kids and talk, you know what? There's a lot of parents out here in the group. There's probably a lot of parents out there watching us from social media as well. Um, how are your kids with, when I say how are they, you just clearly said that, like I'm not talking about their functionality, but just the the thing that, what, you're sure you're not serving them, the standard American diet. How do they, do they say like that? Well, or did they ever at whatever point say that, how come, other kids are eating this way and we can't, because it's always, the question becomes always, we are so much, well, what, kids, it's difficult, with the kids. And so, like, talk to us a little bit of how to give people an idea of how to, let's say, I don't know if to negotiate is the right word, but with kids, to talk to them about eating this way, and do they have any objections to it at all at any time?
well, my kids are 12 and 8, so they didn't have a lot of say in the food in the house, right? So my wife was already way ahead of the game. I mean, I mean, there was a reason I found her because she breastfed for 3.5 years each kid. She was invested in their diet because they had issues in the beginning and she was always tinkering, like, what's going on? And then she realized she was gluten sensitive by changing her diet. So it ended up making our kids, with the gluten stuff, we avoided breads and some pastas. And when I went low carb, it just really we already had it. We had to educate ourselves on oats. We didn't know how toxic those were. I mean, there was a lot of oatmeal with raisins and stuff to try to keep the kids eating in the beginning. But as far as like going to birthday parties, we bring our own almond flour cupcakes. We bring our own sandwiches, which may be made out of my wife's sourdough bread, our meat, our mayonnaise, our stuff. Pork rinds instead of Doritos. We bring sparkling water instead of the soda. I mean, we bring it all, and we're those people because, we're teaching them. I mean, this stuff is so addictive. And that's one of the things I was shocked about. I didn't know, until you start watching like Dr. Robert Lustig and understanding on a cellular level what it's doing to your body. So that shocked me. And I never wanted to give my kids a taste of the cocaine or a taste of the sugar or the heroin, let's just avoid it. Hey, they're gonna know later when they're hanging out with their friends if they eat some garbage, it's gonna hit them hard, and they're gonna be like, I don't like the way that makes me feel, and they're gonna know. They watch the videos I do. It's getting into them. They've seen my journey. I mean, we don't hide it. We say dad ate really bad food for a long time, worked a really high stressful job, made himself sick, and now we're trying to repair him. So you want to avoid that, right? And we talk to them like little adults, and they appreciate that. And now they try to educate their friends. They don't preach to them, but their friends will be like, why are you always eating pork rinds, Killian? He's like, well, I don't eat Doritos or chips, and this is pure protein and healthy fat and shit. So sorry. And he's just honest, next thing you know, kids want to eat pork rinds. So maybe that's my goal. I didn't start my own pork rind business, KetoFiveO chips or something.
Yeah, why not? Catchy name, that's for sure. I'm going to take a few questions from our community, and I'll take. Craig is asking, what caused you to what made you shift from keto to carnivore?
Well, I was about 205 and I had I had saggy skin, and I heard about fasting, and the carb thing, I always thought I needed some, not that I thought I needed it, but the carb thing was always going pure Atkins style, no carbs. I'd tried that before, so I wasn't as confident in doing that. But reading Saladino's book, The Carnivore Code, and then adding, I had to make sure I didn't cramp up, because I was still active, like with the magnesium, potassium. So for me, I really had to concentrate on the minerals and the electrolytes and what kind of water I was drinking that helped me when I did switch from keto to carnivore. But yeah, pretty much that book opened my eyes that I always wanted to eat meat my whole life. I was like, I always crave meat any Salisbury steak, whatever TV dinners I was eating, I double up Salisbury steak dinners, I mean, it's always like that.
Yeah, that kind of segues to part of your answer. Is somebody else was asking, what supplements, if any, do you take?
I'll do liver. And what I did was back in 2020, I had a discount code for ancestral supplements, not that I'm plugging them. And I bought when COVID hit and food was scarce, I think I bought $2,000 worth of supplements. I just maxed out a card. I'm like, I don't care. I need these minerals. I need the liver. I need the brain. And I'm still living off that stuff. It's probably expired, but most of it, I'll break it up, put it in burgers, patty it out and stuff like that. Yeah, but I don't mess with like there's nothing like calcium. There's no cholesterol medications right now. There's, like I said, only the liver supplements.
Another question: do the care providers work specifically with different therapies? Uh, on your 4,000 number to get your numbers are above 4,000. Do they take any other another route to it?
So when I walked away from my insurance also in 2019, when I retired, I didn't want to pay $2,000 a month for insurance when I wasn't going to use it, right? So that's how we were able to, travel full time in our camper. So I'm like, you know what? I met Doug Reynolds. I started seeing all these different practitioners from Low Carb USA, and I'm like, man, if I ever need a doctor, I'll just look up one of these guys and pay out of pocket, because you're always paying anyways, whether it's deductibles or your medication or, I was always paying anyways. So I was like, I'm just going to pay out of pocket for anything. And I knew I wasn't going to need anything serious. So as far as in going the modern medicine path, they would have sent me for probably an angio, whatever. They would crank me up my veins and they would have got in there and it would have been a business decision to say, well, we found this much blockage. We got to put stents in, and then here I am. I'm in there. I'm part of the wheel, right? So, yeah, I wasn't using modern meds. So when I talked to Dr. Lavadia, I said, hey, well, can you be my doctor? It was your idea to go get this rescan done anyways, right? So I was fine. My wife hates it. She thinks it's a way to get healthy people in there that don't have an issue. And then they get them either to do the stress test, which is, controversial, and then to get them up for some type of something. She thinks it's just grabbing the healthy guys. So I don't know. That's her own opinion.
Awesome. I want you to, rightfully so. I mean, you put in so much work in our community, and you're also doing, maybe probably a lot of people here do know your work through the community, right? But maybe not too many people know too much about the amazing work you're doing with cops and campers and how you move around and uh, getting help to all these, first responders and police officers, and you're doing amazing work. So you got to talk about this. You got to tell us what's going on. Maybe, hell, I know I got to join one of these one day. If you're getting close enough to this side of the border, I'm going to show up. So talk to the people about of what's going on of, these get-togethers, the cops and campers. And is it open to everybody?
Yes, absolutely. We have a rally next year in July in Ithaca that Dr. Kiltz is going to be coming. He's going to bring some of his tribe. So it's going to be like a genuine meetup with my community of cops that love to eat meat anyways. We just got to slow them down on some of the other stuff. And, he came last year and he killed it. Kiltz killed it, right? So he was just able to talk to guys, real talk, and I had another guy there teaching, about PTSD, and he was a retired cop, what he went through. So I had the mental side, I had the, the metabolic side, and, it's all intertwined anyway. So it was like my two-headed monster was coming together. But the way it got started was in 2021. We were camping up in New York area because my wife's from Brooklyn. Only reason I even got close to New York City in 2021. I mean, they were burning police cars a year before. You think I wanted to go show up near New York City? But did it for love. And 2 hours outside of New York, we pulled in a campground, and I always put up my police flag because, you know, it's been in my family my whole life. And that's how I meet other campers that are retired, you know, dispatchers, or, you know, it could be military, or it could be anybody that has a brother who's a cop, something, right? Just breaks the ice. And that's when I get them with metabolic health, because they're like, you're too young to be retired. I'm like, oh, and I'm older than you think, you know, and sicker than you think, you know. So that was always a way to break the ice. That's all it was. You know, I wasn't trying to make any statements or anything like that. And this particular campground asked, well, they told me to take down the flag, one of their workers, and we got into it, recorded it. I lost my cool a little bit. I didn't destroy the guy like I thought about. You know, I'm a dad now. I'm a retired old guy. So I was like, I can't kill this guy right now. I don't want to go to prison the rest of my life. So I walked away from it. And I ended up, they almost called the cops on me because I wouldn't take the flag down. And it turned into this big, you know, just, I couldn't believe this crap was going on. So I ended up moving the flag in my truck for the night, sleeping on it, putting it back out, you know, and it just kept being a problem. Well, I got suspended from the camping club for being like, they said I was being mean to their staff, which I was. And all these other campgrounds said, well, if you got suspended for 2 months, well, why don't you come bring your flag, your rig, and your family and stay with us? So we ended up staying in 4 different campgrounds across upstate New York. Local cops came out, started shaking my hand. They gave me golf carts to drive around like I was some MVP, you know, and it was just it was nonsense that it happened for that reason, but it was a really cool experience, you know, and we're having campfire talks. And I was like, man, this is what we should do at these campgrounds, just get us together, because it's therapeutic for us to talk about our past and get to know new guys that have similar issues, whether it's metabolic disease or it's PTS or marital issues, or how are you surviving in retirement life? You know, a lot of issues are going on with us, especially with suicide. So it became a happy place, you know. And then they had a rally, you know, here I am in Niagara Falls, and they're like, yeah, they have a rally for you at the old campground. So I drove back 6 hours from my own rally because I've never had a rally before. So I went all the way back, and there was 50 trucks lined up with thin blue line flags, American flags everywhere. And we had a parade. We drove through all these towns, and it was pretty awesome, right? And then New York State Police stopped us from going to the campground, and we were going to mess around and put a bunch of flags everywhere, and ended up turning into cops and campers, you know. And we started doing little mini rallies. We did a documentary that's on YouTube back in 2022, just what it's all about. It's only like 30 minutes, just kind of gives you an idea of what it's all about and why it's there, and out there, you know, interviews different guys. And then last November, we finally took it to nonprofit, so we can then start, you know, trying to invest back into it to get guys out there that maybe never camped. You know, we can get RV share to rent them campers to come out. If they want a tent camp, they can tent camp. They can stay at a hotel or a cabin. You know, they're not tied to the campground, but what we want to be tied to the activities, you know, which are the campfires, the family events, hiking, you know, come to Dr. Kilt's meetup, you know, or maybe sign up with Dr. Tro's program and get metabolically healthy. You know, I want to have different events and different boosts set up. I want guys to have their glucose measured when they're hanging out, you know, and yeah, if they're having a couple beers, I want them to see what it's doing, you know, just slowly just dabble in that world. And I'm always an example to them. You know, I get a lot of guys asking me, how did you do it? You know, and it was the diet part ended up being the easiest part. The after effects of some of the job and, you know, my own personal issues with the heart, that's been the hardest challenge, is trying to repair the damage that previous life kind of done or did to me, you know. But yeah, the cops and campers thing's pretty much outdoor therapy, metabolic health, and, you know, let's get these guys together, become buddies. And it's good for the spouses and the kids that get to know each other, because, you know, my kid can look at another, you know, kid and go, yeah, his dad's got some problems, dad, just like you. And I'm like, I know, man, I'm sorry, I'm working on it, right? You know, so my kids call me out, they know, you know, and that's part of it. You know, I have to be open with them, you know, a lot of apologizing sometimes, you know, you're like, yeah, I lost my cool back there, but, you know, that's still working, you know.
Yeah, that would be amazing. I mean, that would be incredible. Like in a more kind of like a mini conference in a less formal and more in a way of in nature and peaceful way of having a little conference with booths and stuff like you're saying, like the CGMs and this and that, just like give the general public a chance of, getting educated. And that sounds great. Sounds like a lot of fun. And
Well, we have
yeah.
we got a band that plays Saturday night. They're a bunch of retired cops and corrections guys, and they play Southern rock. And they already call themselves the official Cops and Campers band. We got the Cops and Campers food truck that's been there. So, I mean, we're starting to get, some regular things going. So I think Ithaca's there to stay for as long as we want it. And then we'll move it around. We're looking at Austin, Texas next year, maybe. We'll see. We're starting to get,
Yeah, that's awesome. Did we lose?
You lose me?
Hello, Eric? Yeah,
Did
okay,
you
no.
lose it?
No, I thought because the screen just shifted. That's why. Um,
Oh.
yeah. Yeah, there he is. So you hear us? You're still okay?
Yeah, I hear you. I hear you.
Yeah, okay, good. Um, talk to us. I know you're a big part and you're a big advocate of the low carb community, and I know that you value the community. You're obviously forming and helping, make the cops and campers community, and I know that in Low Carb USA, Society of Metabolic Health Practitioners, you're very active on that front too, and I know you just gracefully became a member in our app. So talk to us a little bit about where you think the importance of community ranks in all of this.
I remember when I first started, I think I joined, I remember which one of the bigger keto success ones that's on Facebook, it's like 100,000 people or something like that. And that was the first time I started really seeing the big time success with it. I mean, these were hundreds of pounds, not my little, at the time I was like, oh, I was down 25 pounds, but it's still a big deal to me. But seeing the amount of weight that people lost, in these different communities was just a tip, of the iceberg for me. Cause then I was like, man, I got these cops talking to me at work, and I got 10 of them texting me on my phone, driving me nuts, asking what they should buy at the store. And they're sending me the back of their labels, and it just was like so time consuming, so starting the KetoFiveO like group page, or then or feeding that crowd into another other options, whether it's the keto group I joined, or whether you join Dr. Barry's group or Tro or any of the big wigs, right? And I always like just searching the different groups of, you could just search. You don't have to ask the question, throw yourself out there. Like some people do, they're like, search the history, it's already there. I always hated those people. But I would just search my questions, and it was kind of private, like getting some of the answers without having to really ask anybody, whether it's about me going to the bathroom too much because my stomach was freaking out, like, what is going on, making sure I wasn't dehydrate myself. And I heard about the electrolytes, and like, okay, that's what was the biggest benefit, is I could do it almost without anyone else knowing that I was researching. It could be acne, or some other issue I had going on. And, maybe it could have been erectile dysfunction if you were suffering from that. You can always search in those groups and usually find a topic. I joined a high CAC group on Facebook. Of course, there's a Facebook group for a high CAC club, right? And there's a guy in there with a 7,000 score. So I'm like, well, that dude's still alive and kicking. So, that gives me hope. And I researched one. I saw one guy with 10,000, but you're not finding a bunch of them, let me tell you. So it's still nice to be even part of that group, and they're heavy on statins and open heart surgery, but I still share my story that give the new people that are looking for another answer, another way, at least a choice, rather than having to go one way. But that's what the groups did for me, and then the way you guys are interactive. I mean, when I went to, I think it was when Doug asked me to, if I wanted to go to the nutrition school, it's a National Society of Sports Nutrition that they got over there with Jeff Cotterman. And yep. I was like, oh no, I don't know all this stuff. I don't, I know how to write a search warrant, but I don't know anything about amino acids, and so I ended up doing it, and learning all this fascinating stuff, and it's so interesting because I was already there. I'd gone through the success of cutting out sugar and all this stuff. So I was learning as, it was just amazing. you know, but we would do group classes like this. We'd get around, people would share some stories, and it was over COVID because it was probably more interaction I was getting anyways because everything was shut down. So it was pretty cool for me. But yeah, I always encourage the group therapies or the group meetings and even the meetups in person. You know, I know there's a meetup in Jacksonville, a carnivore group gets together. I'll crash that if I go through Jacksonville. I mean, I love meeting all these people that are part of this because we're all the same, right? We're just magnetic. We have this energy and we're just trying to spread the word, right?
Yeah. We got in the chat, even though Mr. Collins answered it by writing, but I
Oh,
want to give you the chance to,
I can't see the chat. My bad.
I'll give you the chance to, you actually give you the chance to tell everybody where they can follow you if they want to connect with you on they can connect with you on our app now, but outside of that, on social media, on Instagram, on Facebook, where can they find you?
KetoFiveO.com, anything KetoFiveO or Cops and Campers. And if you do want to follow my mom, she is on social media on Instagram, and it's all under Detective June Hawkins. And I kind of oversee what she's got going on there because, but she does follow it. I'm trying to get her signed up either with you guys or with Amanda. And we're going to see when we get my mom right, so.
Yeah, for sure. That would be awesome. That would be awesome. Okay. Eric, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for taking the time out of your schedule. And, we really appreciate you coming out here and talking to us. Look forward to seeing you soon, hopefully. Maybe we'll catch you in Boca. And really, really appreciate you and all you do. And we need more of you in this community. Thank you so much, Eric.
Thank you. Thank you. I'll talk to you guys soon. Look at you guys. Thanks, Mary.
Take care.
All right. Bye.